Where to go now? Well, we have bubble number 4, fuel at $4 a gallon. With the public reluctant to put money in anything that felt like a paper investment, the street quietly moved the casino to the physical commodities market. Stuff you could touch: corn, coffee, cocoa, wheat, and above all, energy commodities, especially oil. But it was all a lie. While the global supply of oil will eventually dry up, the short-term flow had actually been increasing. So what caused the huge spike in oil prices? Take a wild guess. Obviously, Goldman had help. There were other players in the physical commodities market, but the root cause had almost everything to do with the behaviour of a few powerful actors determined to turn the once solid market into a speculative casino. Goldman did it by persuading pension funds and other large institutional investors to invest in oil futures, agreeing to buy oil at a certain price on a fixed date. High prices in oil, the bank insisted, were somehow the fault of the piggish American consumer. Sound familiar? In 2005, Goldman analysts insisted that we couldn't know when oil prices would fall until we knew when American consumers will stop buying gas-guzzling sport utility vehicles and instead seek fuel-efficient alternatives. But it wasn't the consumption of real oil that was driving up prices, it was the trade in paper oil. Now that reminds me of the silver. I think the trade in paper silver is something like 100 to 1 against physical silver. And they're using that to keep the price of physical silver down. So it's the same casino. The next bubble is rigging the bailout, and I think pretty much dealt with this at the very beginning on the other website of just who was looking after whom. Public money was being given to certain banks or companies so that they could then pay Goldman Sachs back the money that they owed them. You know, it really was a can of worms, and I don't think we need to deal with that. I think, well, I'd suggest strongly to you to go in and personally have a look at this website so you get a fairly good indication of what went on, but I haven't got time to deal with it now. Bubble number 6 is global warming. Fast forward to today, it's early June in Washington DC. Barack Obama, a popular young politician whose leading private campaign donor was an investment bank called Goldman Sachs, its employees paid some $981,000 each campaign, sits in the White House. Having seamlessly navigated the political minefield of the bailout era, Goldman is once again back to its old business, scouting out loopholes in a new government-created market with the aid of a new set of alumni occupying key government jobs. And instead of credit derivatives or oil futures or mortgage-backed CDOs, the new game in town, the next bubble, is in carbon credits, a booming trillion-dollar market that barely even exists yet, but will if the Democratic Party that it gave, I presume by that it means Goldman, gave $4,452,585 to in the last election, manages to push into existence a groundbreaking new commodities bubble disguised as an environmental plan called cap and trade. The new carbon credit market is a virtual repeat of the commodities market casino that's been behind Goldman, except it has one delicious new wrinkle. If the plan goes forward as expected, the rise in prices will be government mandated. Goldman won't even have to rig the game. It will be rigged in advance. Here's how it works. If the bill passes, there will be limits for coal plants, utilities, natural gas distributors, and numerous other industries on the amount of carbon emissions, aka greenhouse gases, they can produce per year. If the companies go over their allotment, they will be able to buy allocations or credits from other companies that have managed to produce fewer emissions. President Obama conservatively estimated that about $646 billion worth of carbon credits will be auctioned in the first 7 years. One of his top economic aides speculates that the real number might be twice or even 3 times that amount. The feature of this plan that has special appeal to speculators is that the cap on carbon will be continually lowered by the government, which means that carbon credits will become more and more scarce with each passing year, which means that this is a brand new commodities market where the main commodity to be traded is guaranteed to rise in price over time. The volume of this new market will be upwards of $1 trillion annually. For comparison's sake, the annual combined revenues of all electricity suppliers in the US total 320 billion. Now, I hope you can see where that was going. I know it's a long, drawn-out reading, but I think it's important to understand how these people work. And especially for those people I have arguments with about global warming and man-made and we've got to sacrifice. No, it's a bullshit thing that's going to make a lot of money for the speculators, like Goldman Sachs. And they will change the regulations just as the regulations were changed to do away with the fluorocarbons that supposedly were putting a hole in the ozone layer, and it just so happened that the patents had run out on the current ones, and so somebody wanted to take out patents on new ones, on new fluorocarbons or on new refrigerants. And as soon as they'd done that, suddenly, miraculously, there was no more hole in the ozone layer. I haven't heard about a hole in the ozone layer for years. And it's the same with this. And the journalist writing this article finishes off by saying, it's a gangster state, running on gangster economics. And even prices can't be trusted anymore. There are hidden taxes in every buck you pay, and maybe we can't stop it, but we should at least know where it's all going. And I think the point of me going through this long drawn-out article is that I'm going to come to Australia in future videos, and I want you to see what you're dealing with. When we talk about Malcolm Turnbull, I want you to know what you're dealing with. And when you talk about gangsters, gangster economics, a gangster state, it's like protection money. And I'm sure that's what's happening to Australia and Australian politicians. And if this thing in France is anything to go by, well, two things in France, it's a threat. We know it's not real. We know it was done by the powers that be within France itself, because there was another drill at the same time, just as in Boston bombing. It goes on and on. 9/11, there's always a drill, and you know that it's false. And there was one in Paris. But the newspapers and the television have been having a field day, and everybody's scared witless. It's succeeded. They're all in a state of shock, and they'll buy the protection. They'll pay the protection money, anything to protect us from this. So that's the reason I'm doing these videos. Okay, that'll have to do. Thanks for that.